This is Korea News for February 17, 2022. As the maximum number of confirmed COVID-19 cases is being renewed every day, the number of new confirmed cases has reached 100,000. According to the Central Quarantine Countermeasures Headquarters on the 16th, a total of 90,443 new confirmed cases as of midnight that day. This is an increase of 33,268 people in one day compared to the previous day when 57,175 people were recorded. As of 9 p.m. on the same day, 90,228 new confirmed cases have already been confirmed, and it is expected that there will be 100,000 new confirmed cases as of midnight on the 17th. Since the third week of last month, when Omicron became the dominant category, the number of new confirmed cases doubling in 1 week. In fact, it entered the 20,000 mark on the 2nd, a week after it first entered the 10,000 unit on the 26th of last month. A week later, on the 9th, it entered the first 40,000 units, and on this day, it also doubled from the previous week, showing a continuous doubling pattern. If the doubling pattern continues, it is predicted that the number could soar to hundreds of thousands from next week. Earlier on the 7th, the quarantine authorities had predicted that the number of new confirmed cases could rise from 130,000 to 170,000 next week. Concerns about an increase in the number of patients with severe cases of severe disease are also rising again. As of midnight on the 16th, there were 313 cases of severe serious illness, which has been maintained at 300 since the 14th. The rate of infection among the elderly, who have a relatively high risk of aggravation, is also on the rise. China, which had swept the gold medal in the early short track race, failed to win even a single gold medal after the controversy over bias. The men's and women's short track races at the 2022 Beijing Winter Olympics ended on the 16th. Korea won the overall championship with 2 gold medals and 3 silver medals. In second place, the host country China, which has recruited a large number of leaders from Korea, including Ahn Hyun-soo, Russian name, Victor Ahn, took the place. China won 2 gold medals, 1 silver medal and 1 bronze medal. Although the number of medals was similar, the flow was opposite. Korea took an upward trend towards the second half of the tournament, but China could not continue its momentum in the early stages. Even at the beginning of the opening, it seemed that China would monopolize the short track medal in the home competition. China won the gold medal in the 200m mixed relay in the first event on the 5th, and swept the gold and silver medals in the men's 1000m on the 7th. However, the 2 events in which China won the gold medal were both embroiled in controversy over biased judgments. In the semi-finals of the mixed relay, the Chinese national team advanced to the finals and won the gold medal after a video reading after playing for disqualification by not touching between players. Domestic fans chimed in as Bluetooth touch. In the men's 1000m semi-finals, Korean athletes who were considered strong candidates for the championship were eliminated one after another despite their excellent skills. Ace Daehan Wang passed the finish line in first place, beating 2 Chinese players, but the referee made an ambiguous decision that he was disqualified after reading the video. Junzo Lee also crossed the finish line in second place, but was disqualified for committing a lane change violation. The absurd decision was repeated in the final. Hungarian Zaoran Shandor-Ryaga finished the match in first place, but the referee dismissed them because she had committed 2 penalties. In the end, China's Ren Ziwei and Li Wenwang, who came in second and third place, won gold and silver medals. These are the players who reached the final after Wang Daehyun was eliminated. Criticism has been raised that China's home advantage has worked excessively. Ren Ziwei survived and won the controversial final, the Associated Press wrote. South Korea and Hungary protested strongly. As the controversy grew, foreign media also focused on the issue of short-track judgment. From this time on, there was no controversy about bias judgment. And, coincidentally, China's gold medal has also disappeared. In the subsequent 6 events, China only added 1 bronze medal, women's relay 3000 meters. It was difficult to get to the finals, let alone a prize. On the other hand, Korea, which overcame adversity, won medals of persistence one after another, achieving the ultimate beauty. Presidential candidate Yoon Suk-yeol visited the funeral home of the deceased in a car accident in Cheonan on the night of the 16th and conveyed his condolences to the deceased and the bereaved family. After meeting with candidate AHN, candidate Yoon said on SNS, "I had a humane conversation with candidate AHN Cheol-soo, who has stopped all election schedules and is dedicated to recovering from damage and rectifying the situation." Candidate Yoon expressed his condolences to the deceased and the bereaved family, and said, "I wish the patient who has not yet recovered consciousness from the accident and Professor Mi-kyung Kim, the wife of candidate AHN, who is hospitalized due to the coronavirus, to a speedy recovery." He added, "I wish for the safety of all citizens." The meeting between the two came 3 days after AHN publicly proposed to Yoon the unification of the poll method on the 13th. Candidate Yoon, leaving the funeral home, told reporters, "I talked to AHN Cheol-soo of the People's Party, who was competing with me, about the unfortunate incident from a human point of view, and even though I was not strong enough, I gave my heart comfort." He added, "If the reporters are guessing, since today's place is a place, we didn't talk about anything else." It was explained that there was no dialogue related to the unification of candidates. A spokesperson who accompanied candidate Yoon said that the two candidates talked for about 25 minutes without an attendee. The United Nations will officially confirm the existence of 21 North Korean abductees who are known to have been abducted by North Korea and reside in Pyongyang, and will ask the North Korean authorities to confirm whether they are alive or dead. During a visit to South Korea, UN Special Rapporteur on Human Rights in North Korea, Thomas O'Hae-Quintana, met with the UN Human Rights Seoul office and officials from the North Korean abductee families on the 17th to discuss the matter. On the same day, CEO Choi said, "Reporter Quintana listens to the investigation of the 21 North Korean abductees residing in Pyongyang who have been confirmed on the Pyongyang citizens list and the UN Human Rights Seoul office. It's the first time we've checked and asked for confirmation of life or death," he said. Previously, the personal data of 2.1 million Pyongyang citizens obtained and released by the media in 2011 were compared and analyzed with the personal data of 505 post-war abductees secured by the North Korean abductee family group, and as a result, 21 abductees resided in Pyongyang. Based on this, the South Korean government requested the North Korean authorities to confirm whether the 21 people were alive or dead, but in September 2013, North Korea gave a notice of unable to confirm. In response, the North Korean abductee family group requested the UN to step in, and the UN Human Rights Seoul office said that it had verified the facts for several years. Rapporteur Quintana will also meet Lee Rae-jin, the older brother of a Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries official who was killed in a North Korean shooting in 2020, and Wang In-cheol, representative of the family of the victim of the 1969 Korean air hijacking. In addition, on the 23rd, after meeting with North Korean human rights-related organizations such as the Repatriation Committee of the South Korean POWs of Malangcho, a press conference will be held on the results of their visit to Korea before departure. It is known that Rapporteur Quintana met with officials from the Ministry of Unification and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs on the 16th to urge the joint proposal of a UN resolution on human rights in North Korea and to discuss the issue of separated families and the humanitarian situation. On the morning of the 16th, Chairman Kim Won-woong, a progressive left-leaning person who is being investigated for corruption such as embezzlement, announced that he would resign as chairman. After the Ministry of Patriots and Veterans Affairs audit on the 10th revealed that the proceeds from the National Assembly Cafe run by the Liberation Society were used as slush funds, etc. This is a situation in which the Kim Won-woong Eradication Executive Headquarters, made up of Liberation members, announced that they would start a sit-down at the Liberation Hall in Udo, Seoul from this afternoon. An official from the headquarters welcomed Chairman Kim's voluntary resignation, but said, "Investigations into personal corruption should be conducted strictly and punished." The Ministry of Veterans Affairs and Veterans Affairs said, there are matters that need to be revealed through the investigation due to the limitations of the audit. On the other hand, even though Chairman Kim resigned, some Liberation members held a rally in front of the Liberation Hall on the 16th and demanded, the Liberation Association executive team also takes responsibility for this situation and resigns. At a press conference, they urged the resignation of the current 7-member executive team, saying, this incident was not caused by Kim Won-woong alone, but the result of knowing and condoning and aiding the executive team appointed by Chairman Kim. In addition to Lee Jae-myung, the People's Power raised suspicions that Kim Hye-kyung, the spouse of Democratic presidential candidate Kim Hye-kyung, paid 3.18 million won with a Jae-yonggi corporate card over 15 times in a house near her home alone. Choi Ji-hyeon, senior deputy spokesperson for the People's Power Election Response Headquarters, said in a comment on the same day, Mr. A, who reported the corruption of Kim Hye-kyung, paid 120,000 won with a corporate card at the Fugu restaurant 500 meters away from the home of presidential candidate Lee Jae-myung in Sunidong. As a result of analyzing the publicly disclosed business promotion expenses in Jae-yonggi-do, from October 2019 to August 2021, only 15 times, 3.18 million won was paid here with a corporate card. It is not the normal execution of business promotion expenses, but the misuse of public funds. The people want to know the truth about apartment 2402. Will the secret of the parasites that ate large amounts of food delivered to the house of candidate Lee Jae-myung's wife Kim Hye-kyung be revealed? People's Power launched an offensive in relation to Democratic presidential candidate Lee Jae-myung's doubt about the neighbor's house, saying, isn't the shadow presidential organization secretly helping the National Assembly on the morning of the same day? There is no choice but to raise a reasonable suspicion that candidate Lee Jae-myung was involved in an organized embezzlement crime. He continued, people are wondering where the 10 sushi people went and who the parasite that 5th grade civil servant B talked about is. It is the right thing for the people to receive, he emphasized. Recalling that B, who served as secretary to Lee Jae-myung's wife, Kim Hye-kyung, mentioned parasite in a private call, questioning Kim's large number of food orders, and suspecting that Kim may have provided food to the people living next door. Will do. Next, at the same meeting, National Assembly Floor Leader Kim Hye-kyung raised the level of offensive by referring to a blind article that was presumed to have been written by an employee of Jae-yonggi Housing and Urban Corporation. He said, in March 2021, a blind article was posted stating that they had made up a false document about the use of the dormitory, next to candidate Lee Jae-myung's house. There has also been a post that the president of the Housing and Urban Corporation instructs the staff to make the presidential campaign promises for candidate Lee Jae-myung. If you put the pieces together, this dormitory was moved to the site of candidate Lee Jae-myung's home in August 2020 and used illegally, preparing candidate Lee Jae-myung's promises, etc. I can't help but raise a reasonable doubt that he was preparing for the presidential election, he said. He continued, I wonder if they were secretly preparing for Lee Jae-myung's presidential election as a shadow presidential organization in Sunidong, and his wife Kim supported them with taxes like the blood of Jae-yonggi residents. People want to know the truth about apartment 2402. Won Hye-kyung, who first raised the allegation the day before, aimed at the fact that the president of the Jae-yonggi Housing and Urban Corporation at the time was lawyer Lee Hyun-wook, who is classified as a close aide to Lee Jae-myung. In a Facebook post on the same day, he said, the person who lived in room 2402, which is next door to candidate Jae-myung Lee, is currently working as the performance planning manager at Songnam Art Center. Why did the president change the boarding rules for executives and make them use the house next door? He asked. Then, through another Facebook post, when Mr. Kim, the spouse of candidate Jae-myung Lee, published a book called Make Rice in 2018 and held an autograph session, attorney Hyun-wook Lee came and posted a photo taken with Mr. Kim, the wife of candidate Jae-myung Lee. Director Won Hye-kyung also pointed out candidate Jae-myung Lee's explanation of the next-door suspicion as a story I've never heard of for the first time. The person who originally lived next door to candidate Lee Jae-myung took his son to Canada to study in Canada, he said. He wrote. A key official of the People's Power said in a phone call, the situation in which the pre-election campaign was conducted is deep. It would be like running an illegal election office, he said, adding, this is a violation of the Public Official Election Act. In response, the Democratic Party refuted, saying, the claim of the People's Power is clearly false. In a notice sent to reporters by the Democratic Party Election Countermeasures Committee, the Public Affairs team of the Democratic Party Election Committee explained, the Gyeonggi Housing and Urban Corporation explained that the accommodation was used by 2 agents and 2 ordinary employees who were in charge of the Panjo Project Group's development project, and the employees of the Housing Corporation. It is said that there are more than 100 dormitories. Neither candidate Lee Jae-myung nor the election committee know about the dormitory of the Gyeonggi-do Construction Company, and there is no reason to be involved in the construction dormitory. There is no reason to put the predecessor organization in Bundang. I hope the People's Power will immediately stop raising false allegations. If they continue to be negative, they will be held strictly legally responsible, he added. Were you a slave to the 5th grade civil servants in Gyeonggi-do, B, and Hye-kyung Kim? The record of public service activity for the past 8 years is 0. B, who is suspected of running private errands for the presidential candidate Lee Jae-myung of the Democratic Party of Korea, has worked as a public official for 8 years in Songnam City in charge of local government overseas promotion and visiting foreigner protocol. It was argued that it did not. In this regard, the People's Power launched an onslaught, saying, isn't it because he was Kim Hye-kyung's public servant, not a public official? On the 16th, Rep. Kim Hye-kyung of People's Strength announced that during her tenure in Songnam City from July 2010 to May 2018, the duties of overseas public relations for municipal administration, internal reports directly related to foreign visitors protocol, overseas publicity materials at City Hall, photos of activities, etc. was requested, but Songnam City replied, there is no archived data. During the period, 36 foreign officials visited Songnam, but there were no documents or photos of activities written by B. After Lee Jae-myung served as the mayor of Songnam for 8 years, and after Lee Jae-myung was elected governor of Gyeonggi-do, the role of Mr. B, who served as a grade 5 civil servant in Gyeonggi-do for 3 years, has raised a lot of doubts within Songnam City in the past. Known. The minutes of the Special Committee on Budget and Settlement of Songnam City Council in 2012 contain comments from city councillors related to this. Songnam City Councillor said, in the data provided by the General Affairs Department, Mr. Bay's job is execution of protocol, but the data brought by the Chief of Secretary says foreign protocol. She said that this person was doing her wife's, Kim Hye-kyung, training, and she does it again. It was not clear what role B played. Meanwhile, Kang Jian-ae, a full-time spokesperson for the People's Power Election Response Headquarters, said in a comment the day before, unlike general public servants who keep all business processes as public documents, B, who does not have one official document written by himself, is not working as a public official, but the family of candidate Lee Jae-myung, who does not need to write an official document. It's enough to make me wonder if a legal protocol was the only job. He also said, in response to a related inquiry from the press, candidate Lee said, ask Songnam City. However, as revealed today, it seems that the wife of the mayor of Songnam knows more about Bay's work than the Human Resources Department of Songnam City Hall. Deputy spokesperson Kang, who demanded that candidate Jae-myung Lee show any traces of Mr. B if he had any role as a public official, said Kang, if he was a public servant without even a trace, he would admit that Mr. B was nothing more than a slave in charge of illegal protocols emphasized. If you want to continue denying that Mr. B was not a slave to a civil service job, we would like to disclose all phone calls between Kim Hye-kyung and B from the time Lee Jae-myung took office as Songnam mayor in 2012 until the time Lee Jae-myung resigned from the Gyeonggi governor in 2021. The people will decide whether B was a civil servant or a slave holding a civil service position, he added. With hundreds of thousands of confirmed cases per day, the government is looking for ways to ease or compromise social distancing. Although the peak has not yet reached and there are concerns about social paralysis, it seems that they are also concerned about the accumulated damage to the livelihood economy. It is expected to finally adjust the level of the current 9 o'clock limit for private gatherings for 6 people, multi-use facilities, or to suspend some quarantine measures. The government will announce the adjustment plan on the 18th after discussion with the Daily Restoration Support Committee on the 17th. As of midnight on the 16th, the number of new confirmed cases stood at 90,443, an increase of 33,268 from the 57,175 the previous day. In the near future, 100,000 new cases are expected to become a reality. Kim Hye-kyung, director of the Korea Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, mentioned there is a possibility of 130,000 to 170,000 cases per day at the end of this month. Experts expect more than this. It peaks in early March and the number of confirmed cases is expected to range from 200,000 to 300,000 in March. As the scale of the epidemic grows, there is a possibility that both severe risk patients and deaths are likely to increase, so it is necessary to prepare for it. The number of seriously ill patients is currently in the low 300s, but there is plenty of room to increase with the time lag of the number of confirmed cases. In this situation, the government is talking about relaxing social distancing. It is reported that they are considering a way to extend the business of restaurants and cafes to 10 p.m. for an hour and allow up to 8 people for private gatherings. In particular, it seems that they are only weighing the level after confirming the easing. Prime Minister Kim Hye-kyung announced at a meeting of the Central Disaster Response Headquarters on the 11th, "I will make a courageous decision at any time if I can manage it." Prime Minister Kim said on the 14th, "Experts say we shouldn't be in a hurry, but we have been forced to suffer for more than 7 weeks on small business owners and the self-employed. We have a responsibility to answer their cries." Kim Hye-kyung, the head of the Korea Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, also added, "I agree that a step-by-step adjustment is necessary. We will review the mitigation plan to achieve the objective by comprehensively judging business restrictions, adjustments to private gatherings, and the scope of application of the quarantine pass." Experts warn that if social distancing is eased in the midst of an explosion, the number of confirmed cases will peak and the loss of life could be enormous. On the other hand, the self-employed are fiercely opposed to signs of not easing. The self-employed are calling for the abolition of social distancing. "If treatment is not improved immediately, we will resist the government guidelines and open 24 hours, the Federation of Corona Victims Businesses said. The government is planning to gradually stop the QR code-based access list, which has become obsolete due to the introduction of self-reported epidemiological investigations. Regarding the quarantine pass, while emphasizing that it must be maintained, changes to the applied facilities are discussed. The Central Accident Management Headquarters emphasized, it is now in the stage of hearing various opinions, and the adjustment of the distance will be reviewed after collecting various opinions, and a final decision will be made at the meeting on the 18th. The Daily Recovery Support Committee is scheduled to hold a meeting at 10:30 a.m. on the 17th in a mixed face-to-face and non-face-to-face format. However, it is unclear how much the government will reflect the opinions of this meeting. The Federation of Small Businesses held a press conference in front of the National Assembly on the 16th with the National Self-Employment Expenses Captain and urged the expeditious handling of the delayed Supplementary Amendment Bill and the abolition of business restrictions. In a press conference, OSCE, president of the Federation of Small Businesses, said, as the presidential election campaign began, the National Assembly was virtually closed. In light of the urgent situation, I strongly urge the opposition and opposition parties to put their heads together and quickly reach an agreement on the additional amendment bill as the top priority, he said. In addition, Chairman OSCE said, the current quarantine policy, which imposes only one-sided sacrifices on small business owners and self-employed people due to high-intensity business restrictions, is a failed quarantine policy, and we need to immediately switch to a private autonomous quarantine system. Kim Hye-kyung, CEO representative of the Self-Employment Non-CEO, said, the debate among the presidential candidates for 50 trillion won and 100 trillion won is actually becoming a hopeful advisor as the supplementary budget plan is not properly processed. As the number of new confirmed cases of COVID-19 surges amid the Omicron mutation pandemic, the IT industry is actively taking measures to prevent it, such as extending telecommuting. According to the IT industry on the 16th, Naver announced through an in-house notice the previous day that it would continue the telecommuting system, which was originally planned until next month, at the company-wide level until June. Naver planned to implement a new working system in April, but this was also delayed. Previously, Naver announced in July last year that it would implement remote work until the end of last year for the safety of its employees. Due to the spread of Omicron mutations at the end of last year, remote work was extended until March of this year, but it was extended again. Naver also banned face-to-face meetings, business trips, and dinner parties for its employees. In order to go to the office, you must get approval from the head of the organization in advance. If an employee on the go shows symptoms of COVID-19, he or she can receive a self-test kit at an in-house hospital in the office building. Kakao strengthened its existing remote work policy right after the Lunar New Year holiday earlier this month. Unless it is an unavoidable circumstance, it is difficult to enter the company without the approval of the head of the organization until the 18th. If you are forced to go to work, you can only enter if you are negative by submitting a self-diagnosis kit or PCR test paper to the company in advance. To this end, Kakao sent 20 self-diagnosis kits to all employees. Starting from the 21st of this month, it is recommended to stay at home by default, but if you go to the office, you must test negative with the test kit delivered to your home. In the game industry, telecommuting continues. Nexon is operating a telecommuting system, and Netmarble is also implementing full telecommuting. NCSoft has a rotational work system where each department takes half turns and works in the office. Line Plus has decided to implement a hybrid work system that allows employees to work freely wherever they want even after the end of Corona-19. It's up to the employee to choose whether to work from home completely or partially. Accordingly, by the first half of this year, it was decided to change the office from a fixed seat system to an autonomous seat system that considers employees who want to come to the company. Moderna chief executive Stefan Bancel said it was reasonable to think that the coronavirus pandemic is almost over. According to the American media Business Insider, Bancel appeared on CNBC on the same day and answered, "I think it's a reasonable scenario to a question about whether the Corona-19 has reached its end. As the coronavirus evolves, there's about an 80% chance," Bancel added. "The virus will become less and less lethal. However," he said, "the number of confirmed cases of COVID-19 among people over the age of 50 and those at risk of severe infection is expected to increase every year. Coronavirus will go on forever with humans like the flu," he said. "We have to live with this." Bancel also warns that there is a remaining 20% chance of a mutant virus more deadly than Omicron. "Luckily, Omicron was not fatal," he said. "But there are still thousands of people dying every day on Earth. Viruses are unpredictable. A semiconductor chip that cost 16 cents, about 191, at the beginning of last year has now risen 150 times to $24, about 28,701. We are losing between 300 million and 400 million won every month." The CEO of a company A, which makes car navigation parts in Daegu, sighed in a phone call with the Jungang Ilbo on the 16th, saying, "We have been doing business with losses since June of last year." He said, "The market situation is not normal as the price of semiconductor chips has risen 100 times and 150 times. The sense of crisis is growing because the delivery date has to be kept, and the increase in parts prices is not reflected in a timely manner," he said. As the supply of semiconductors for vehicles prolongs, secondary automotive suppliers such as Company A are being hit directly. It is because it is the responsibility of the supplier that supplies the parts to the automakers to obtain the semiconductor chips used in the parts. Since the global supply of semiconductors for automobiles is far short of demand, mid-tier parts makers are paying more for semiconductor chips to middlemen in Hong Kong and other places. Another B-parts company CEO said, "In order to meet the quantity contracted with automakers, we have to buy semiconductor chips even if they are expensive." He worried there is a forecast that the supply of semiconductors for vehicles will recover from the first half of this year, but there are skeptical responses from the field. The business performance of auto parts makers has been deteriorating rapidly since last year. According to the Korea Automobile Research Institute and the Bank of Korea, the average operating margin of 550 domestic auto parts makers as of the third quarter of last year was 1.1%. For the past 5 years, the operating profit ratio has been maintaining an average of 3% to 4%, but the performance has deteriorated as the parts shortage intensified. In its report on the trends of the automobile parts industry, the Bank of Korea diagnosed that Korean auto parts makers have deteriorated overall performance due to the disruption in finished car production, and companies that directly handle semiconductors for automobiles are experiencing aggravating difficulties due to semiconductor price hikes. According to the Korea Automobile Research Institute, there are 4,660 domestic auto parts companies, with more than 10 employees, and 260,000 people working there. This means that jobs in major manufacturing industries are being shaken due to the shortage of semiconductor parts. Lee Hang-koo, a research fellow at the Korea Automobile Research Institute, said, "Completed car makers have made record-high profits due to increased demand, but the small and medium-sized parts industry is increasingly being pushed to the limit. The auto industry is also deceived. Recently, they are anxious to entrust the supply and demand of semiconductors only to primary and secondary suppliers, so they are actively pursuing direct procurement." A Hyundai Motor official said, "Since the end of last year, executives in charge of semiconductors have been traveling abroad frequently. This means that global automakers are rushing to manage their inventory as if competing against automotive semiconductor manufacturers such as Germany's Infineon, Renesas, Japan, and NXP, Netherlands. Geely in China and GM and Ford in the US announced that they would directly develop semiconductors for vehicles." CEO Kim Hye-kyung, head of Hyundai Motors Strategy and Finance Division, also said at a performance presentation last month, "We plan to stabilize supply and demand in the mid to long term through direct procurement of semiconductors and the promotion of swaps of common semiconductors between automakers and suppliers." Due to the lack of supply and demand for semiconductors, consumer inconvenience is aggravating. Even if you sign a new car contract, there are many cases where you have to wait about a year or so for the car to be delivered. Mr. Shin, who recently started the business, signed a contract for a new Carnival 9-seater last November, but gave up on the purchase after hearing from a salesperson that he could only receive it at the end of this year. Shin said, "I need a car right now because I have to go to and from the countryside, so I decided to rent a car for a long time." According to Hyundai and Kia, popular models have a waiting period of over a year. The Sportage Sorento Hybrid, HEV, can be delivered only after a year and 2 months even if the contract is made now. Electric vehicles EV6, Ioniq 5 and Genesis GV60 take about a year. Finally, from the second half of last year, a negative option appeared when buying a new car. This is because the shipment time can be advanced by excluding some convenient specifications that include semiconductors. A Hyundai Motor official said, "If you remove the rear parking collision prevention and remote parking assist functions, you can reduce the car price and get it several months earlier." Imported cars such as GM, Benz, and BMW are being sold without some options. A GM Korea official said, "Since the semiconductor shortage is the same in North America and Europe, overseas, while focusing on semiconductor inventory management related to key functions such as driving and safety, we are producing cars without one or two convenience features such as seat heating and parking assistance. Told because of this, among imported car buyers, there are also complaints that the price of the car has risen because it is a new model, but the function is not as good as that of the 2021 model. Under these circumstances, used cars have also become precious. Even if you buy a new car, it takes a long time to ship, and there are cases where the functions are not as good as the previous year's model, so the demand for used cars is increasing. According to K-Car, a directly managed used car platform, used car prices are rising every month, centering on hybrid and electric vehicles. The Tesla Model Y was priced at 78 million won on that day, up 30% from last month. It is almost equivalent to the price of a new car, 79.89 million won. Park Sang-il, head of K-Car's team, said, as the waiting period for new cars is getting longer, the market price of some used cars exceeds the price of new cars. Avant Hybrid also has an average used car price of 24.84 million won, but this year's new car price is 21.99 million to 28.14 million won. It is from the end of 2020 that the supply shortage of vehicle semiconductors started in earnest. Although the demand for semiconductors has surged due to the increase in finished vehicle sales as the country is gradually recovering from the aftermath of COVID-19, semiconductor companies are unable to respond to the surge in demand for semiconductors for vehicles as they have focused on the production of products for smartphones and home appliances in recent years. Ho Jae-un Lee, a professor of automobiles at Daedeok University, said, "We are expanding vehicle semiconductor facilities, but the factories are not operating soon, so supply disruptions are lengthening." Experts point out that there is a need for countermeasures as the financial difficulties of small and medium-sized partners are getting serious right now. Research fellow Lee Hang-koo said, "If the transition to electric vehicles and eco-friendly vehicles accelerates, the government should come up with a meticulous support plan as the existing internal combustion engine-centered parts supply chain could go out of business." Thank you for watching today. Please like and subscribe.